Another good chilly morning. It's Monday. Hope you had a great weekend. Uh, I survived mine. As you can see, it's still pretty chilly. Thanks everyone for your concern about our cold house here. Uh, we're just being wusses, okay, about this whole thing. Uh, our house does have uh, a furnace, okay, um, that is adjusted in such a way that it heats the entire house. And there's an upstairs and everything else. And it literally takes hours just to bring the temperature up just a few degrees. So we do depend on a space heater in our a little portable thing that we have in our bedroom. And so thank you for your concern there. Uh, Obviously, uh, even if we could afford to leave that furnace going all day, it would pretty much wipe us out, our budget out. So that's why we're huddling here. That's why I rode for several hours out in the car yesterday because I've got a nice, comfortable back seat to my VW Combi bus there, and uh, the car's nice and warm in the daytime. And I took my computer out and worked on my book yesterday. Anyway, that's it for that. Today I looked up and I said, "What is the 27th? What's the 27th?" And it's my mother's birthday. And uh, I've tried to just now I tried to find it. I've got a set of sort of uh, precious stone earrings that when I was a kid, maybe 9 or 10, I knew that my folks had a an account at the local drugstore, Tully's drugstore in Columbus, Nebraska, and I'd seen my mother buy stuff there and just told them to put it on her account. And so my dad said, "What'd you get your mother for her birthday?" And I said, "I didn't get her anything." He said, "Well, get her something." So I went down to Tully's drugstore and I said, I asked the woman at the counter, I said, "It's my mother's birthday. She's like 48 or something like that." And I said, "What could I get her?" And she came up with these earrings, and they're really cool, and I still have them. Okay. And so I said, "Wrap them up." And I said, put it on Lucinda DuQuette's account." So I bought her a present with her own money, and she said, "Oh, this is lovely. Where'd you get it?" I said, "I got it at Tully's. I put it on your account." Anyway, uh, she's been today. She would have been 110 years old. Okay, 1913. She was born in 1913, and her mother. Okay, uh, I love Ancestry, the Ancestry.com or whatever that thing is, and it's very interesting. And I've in my own little way have taken things back to late 1400s on some sides of my family. But her mother, my grandmother, who I never met, was born in 1886. And her mother, who was also named Lucinda, just like mine, so that would have been my great great grandmother, was born in 1859, Lucinda Purball. And her ancestors, I think it's John Purbaugh, eventually goes back to the Revolutionary War period. I think he was a loyalist, but I'm not sure. Uh, anyway, he could probably get us in the Daughters of the American Revolution. Uh, but anyway, I just wanted to share just a few things about her because it's her birthday. Uh, she was born in Nebraska, and in a pretty rough part of the state, western Nebraska, around North Platte. And North Platte was called the Babylon of the West for a long time because it was a big railroad hub, and there was a lot of uh, gangster type activity there. I mean, cowboy gangster activity, and a lot of prostitution and saloons and things. So it's really a rough, colorful Wild West. Uh, and in 1913, that was still cowboy days. She rode a horse to school and things like that. My mother rode a horse to school. Uh, but anyway, she after she died, we found out more about her, and this doesn't appear on Ancestry for some reason, but I guess she had been married once before and it had been annulled. But anyway, she was working as a waitress at a diner in Paxton, or a small town around North Platte there. And my father, who was a California guy, but him and a buddy for a couple of years were drilling wildcat oil wells. They were exploring for oil in Wyoming and Kansas and Nebraska. And so he was in the restaurant, the cafe, where mom had was working, and that's where they met. Okay, and after my father died, we found out that he'd been married twice before, and those first two marriages do appear on Ancestry. But anyway, for some reason, I hope he bothered to divorce the first two wives, because he finally married my mother in 1940 in Chapel, Nebraska, and brought her back. My brother was born in 1942, and I was born in 1948. Everybody probably has mother stories to tell. My mother was sort of difficult, okay, and the more I find out about her life and her past and everything else, the more willing I am to understand and forgive all sorts of negative things. You get old and you go, well, they tried their best. Well, they did. They did try their best. And but she could be very very abusive. But she had a remarkable charisma about her personality. And it was a trait that was shared by her sister, especially her sister Gladys, who remained in Nebraska. And Gladys was crippled almost from birth, with a strange bone disease that sort of gelatinized her bones. freaky thing. And it may have been the gene that sort of gave me my hip problems. But anyway, both she and Gladys had this mesmerizing ability to sort of take over. And I'm not saying it's a negative thing, but it can turn negative. It's almost like the need to enslave those around them. And obviously, my dad wasn't the type of person to go for that. So he remained somewhat I don't want to say aloof, but he could detach himself from that. And that sort of made her turn her attention to my brother and myself, and it was hard on my brother especially, and it all became sort of abusive. And but who was born 6 years later. I wasn't going to go for it at all, and I was just an ornery little guy. But her part of her, I would say it's her saving grace, was she had a beautiful singing voice, and she had been in the church choirs all of her life growing up. And when Amy Semple McPherson and the Foursquare Gospel traveling troupe came into the North Platte Paxton area there, they always recruited a local choir to back up Amy's program. And my mother, of course, volunteered for that and was part of the troupe. They loved her singing, and I think she was like 15, and they offered her the opportunity to join the choir and travel with them. And for one reason or another, I don't think she probably had she wasn't self-sufficient enough to take that opportunity. But she always knew that. She always liked that, and she was always active in some church, usually a Methodist church, so she could be in the choir. And so that's sort of what got me involved in the Methodist church, first as in the children's choir and things like that. But she didn't know or care too much about the doctrines of the church. She had been indoctrinated by a hellfire and brimstone, what we would call today evangelical form of sort of like Crowley's parents in their Darbyite, Calvinistic Darbyite form of Protestantism. So she was a hellfire, brimstone, highly superstitious, childlike belief Christian. And so in the years that I was involved in the Methodist Church, grade school, junior high, high school, the United Methodist Church in the United States was social justice aware, in the forefront of the civil rights movement, and it was cool. Okay, it was It was actually cool. And I was starting to, to take an interest in social things too. So I was comfortable singing in the Methodist church and things like that. And I was also comfortable during the my high school years when I was getting involved in the anti-war movement, the anti-Vietnam movement, which also was attached to the civil rights movement. And so my correspondent contacts and where I would get my literature and my pamphlets and things like that that distribute came from the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee and the Students for a Democratic Society and the Student Peace Union. Okay. And I was really getting into social issues and things like that. And of course, I wanted to share that information with everybody. And one day I made the mistake of trying to share it with Mom. And I didn't know quite how to go at it because she, she was looking for communists under the bed, and and she had one, but so I sat down with her one evening. I know how I'm going to do this, and I took a piece of paper and I drew like an eagle with two wings, the left wing and the right wing. Okay. And I said, way over here at the end is what you think of as communism, Stalin stuff like that. That's way over there on the left. And way over here on the right is like Hitler. Okay, that's fascism. Do you get that? They're at the opposite ends, and the ends are usually bad news. And she gets that. Okay, she looked like she got that. And I said, when you were growing up, who was your favorite president? What president? And she says, oh, FDR. And I said, okay. Now FDR was great. I like him too. And I said, and then I point to sort of to the bird. Okay. And I go considerably right of the extreme left tip of the eagle there. And I said, FDR was right about there. Okay. And he saw that government could help people, especially people that needed help. The government was concerned with that pursuit of happiness, and and I tried to give her this talk, and I thought it was brilliant, and it seemed like I got through to her, and I don't know how much later it was, and I was going to Omaha. I had a job delivering repaired television sets, so I'd drive the 90 miles to Omaha to pick up television sets and deliver the repaired ones. And so while I was in Omaha, I would visit friends in the movement. Mostly from the Unitarian Church there in Omaha, and I made friends with a kid my age, and his family. His father was the head of an important labor union in Omaha, and he would regale me with stories of I remember in the 33 strike in Dearborn, we shot milk cans full of gasoline, and we threw Molotov cocktails. And so, in other words, I was hanging out with old radicals. The reason I'm telling you this is a few weeks later, after I thought I had this wonderful talk with Mom, I was looking for cigarettes, okay, in our living room hutch. And I was rifling through because Mom would hide the cigarettes, under papers and stuff. So I was looking under papers, and I found a letter from the Justice Department, the United States Department of Justice. And I open it up and I read it. And it's, Dear Mrs. DuQuette, in response to your inquiry of such and such a date, I am referring you to the Omaha office of the Federal Bureau of Investigation, and I gave the person there to contact. Thank you for your inquiry. We appreciate it. Blah, 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 blah. Mom had turned me into the FBI. My father, who was becoming incapacitated because of emphysema, and he was home a lot. And I confronted him with that letter. And I said, this is a letter from the Justice Department. Did Mom call the FBI on me? And Dad looked terribly hurt and embarrassed, and he said, yes. And he said, her friend Fern had a talk with her, and it said, it sounds like Lonnie has fallen in with communists. And it would be better if he went to prison right now before he ruins his life. So she wrote the Justice Department first. I don't know where she got that. In Washington, D.C., they gave her the Omaha one. She talked to the Omaha guy. This is according to my father's secondhand thing. The Omaha guy said, thank you very much, Mrs. DuQuette. But he probably just kind of threw her letter away about the same time he hung up with her, okay, because it was obvious it was a kind of a hysterical provincial mother. Nothing came of it, but I was really, really pissed. She called the FBI on me, and her own son, and she'd rather see me go to prison than have my life ruined. Well, needless to say, I just got out of there the second I graduated from high school. But I've forgotten all about it. Okay. Years and years later, when the what did they call it? The Freedom of Information Act. You could write a letter and say, yeah, could I see my file of whatever you got on me? And they got back and said, we don't have a file on you. It's okay. But I forgot to ask, do you have a file on my mother? Under the category of mothers who are crazy enough to turn their son in and into the FBI. But anyway, I owe so much to Mother. My love of music. She didn't teach me to play the guitar, but she taught me the first few songs that I would sing as I played the guitar. Uh, she gave me and my singing partner the first professional job. She worked at a uh, clothing store. She's a sales lady at a clothing store, and we sang at their Christmas party. It's the first money I ever made playing. She had an insanely funny sense of humor, and I could make her laugh, and she could make me laugh when she wasn't turning me into the FBI. And uh, she was a good grandmother, snuck Jean Paul off to church. but but anyway, when she died, uh, everybody who knew her kind of felt the same way I did. They really liked her. Uh, they're happy to know her. She was fun to be around. But they knew that that she was crazy. And uh, oh God, she went to when she was in her 70s. She and her new husband, my father had been long dead, went to see Frank Sinatra at the convention center in Long Beach. And they sat close enough to the stage where, well, they sat close enough, and my mother wouldn't shut up. She kept talking to her friends, and it was made everybody mad around her. And it was like Bobart. She was vaping and grabbing. No, but she wouldn't shut up, and they stopped and kicked her out. Probably during My Way, which should have been her theme song. Anyway, this is my eulogy. I've shared it with you before, usually on Mother's Day, but I'll close with it today. This is at Christ Presbyterian Church in Lakewood, California, January 26, 2008. That's she had died a few months before. And I have to tell you that this sounds disrespectful and mean-spirited, but it wasn't. And everyone attending her funeral, which was pretty well attended, knew her well enough to laugh at every line. The minister laughed at every line and later told me it was the best eulogy he had ever heard. So there. Are you ready? I'm sure not all mothers are vampires, but mine was. I sucked her milk for less than a year, and she sucked my blood for the next 59. Up to a point, I think it's part of the natural order of things. We all live off of each other in one way or another. If someone really needs to be nourished with my energy, I'm happy to bleed a little for them. But I really resent it when they don't really drink my blood, but instead spill it all over the floor. I'm sad to say in her 94 years, Mom spilled a lot of people's blood all over the floor. Please don't get me wrong. Mom loved people. But she hated all other living things. You'd never catch her petting a dog or stroking a cat. She strove to kill all insects, both inside and outside the house. She didn't even care too much for flowers because of the chance they might harbor an insect. You never wanted to take her to a restaurant to which you ever intended to return. She ran waiters and waitresses ragged, and if she didn't like the food, she would often call them over to the table, take the food out of her mouth, and say, "Honey, look at this. Would you eat that?" She would then try to get them to eat some of it before sending it back. Toward the end of the meal, she always loudly announced within earshot of the haggard waitress that she didn't believe in tipping, because she worked as a waitress for so many years, and I guess she didn't depend on the tips. She always stole the napkins. To say she was strong-willed and self-centered would be a colossal understatement. If I were to use the title of a popular song to describe the character of this amazing person, it'd have to be Frank Sinatra's "My Way." And then I'd tell the story. I should have just waited. As a matter of fact, when she was in her late 70s, she demonstrated how true this was by causing herself and her entire party to be kicked out of a Frank Sinatra concert in Long Beach because she refused to stop talking or stop loudly chatting with her friends during his performance. Sadly, I must give her mixed reviews as far as her parenting skills were concerned. She subscribed to the old school philosophy that states a mother should never whip a child, unless she was red in the face in the throes of a violent blind rage and completely out of control. These beatings were perhaps tame compared to some stories of abuse. Really. Once, however, as I struggled to escape a paddling, she missed her mark and hit me in the head with the edge of a wooden paddle. I guess it scared her pretty badly to see me stunned, blind, and bouncing off the furniture. But I'm all grown up now, and I've forgotten all about it. Because I was the second child born, I personally escaped many of the more severe and damaging effects her maternal learning curve visited upon my older brother, Mark, in the 6 years of his life before I was born. But Mark's all grown up now, too. And I'm sure he's forgotten all about it, too. Yes, Lucinda Myrtle DuQuette was quite a character. Strong-willed, charismatic, wicked, and unforgettable. A few months before she died, I wrote her this little poem. Perhaps we were neighbors, perhaps we were kin, perhaps we were husband and wife, perhaps we were friends, perhaps we were foes, perhaps we took each other's life. No matter the bonds we bring from the past or what we once were to each other, whether parent or spouse, sister or brother, this time around, you're our mother. So as this part of our lives draws near to a close, and the stage will soon be set for another, let's kiss and let's laugh and set fire to the past, and forgive and forget one another. Happy 110th birthday, Mom. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Love is the law, love under will.